we get going today, a little bit of a disclaimer. I know that when we go through a series like this, oftentimes there are some couples that are really, really going through something really painful. Maybe you find yourself dealing with an affair or abuse, or you would say, we are on the brink of giving up, right? We're going to call it quits. And if you're in that spot, we want to ask you to reach out for help. Okay, don't go this alone. We know that a 30-minute message cannot get into the nuances and the depth in which you might be experiencing. But we're going to ask you to reach out, right? To email us, go to the hub, reach out to your small group leader, stop us in the lobby. We want to be a resource to help your relationship get better no matter where it's at. Well, as we get going today in our third week of this series, I want you to think back to your very first cell phone. Could you do that? Think back to how many can remember your first cell phone? Do you remember that, what that looked like? Well, maybe some of you, based on your age, maybe this was your first cell phone. This was the very first cell phone. It was the Motorola bag phone. Does anybody remember this phone, right? I think they gave away a free pair of MC Hammer pants with this phone when you purchased that. I think it was like a Motorola gift. Well, then technology improved, and maybe you stepped up to the Motorola Dynatac. This is also known as the Zach Morris phone, if you remember Saved by the Bell. Then it went to Motorola StarTAC. Now, this was the first flip phone. This is when phones got cool. How many of you, this was your first phone? Do you remember that? Yeah, this was one of my first phones as well. I mean, it was really, really cool. You thought, how can a phone fold in half? This is amazing. And then it moved on to the BlackBerry, that's right. And this is really the first addictive phone because phones could do more than text and talk. This is really where you got into your calendar and some planning and some stupid games and that kind of thing. And then all of this led us to God's favorite phone, which we know is the iPhone. We know that God's favorite is the iPhone. All of you Android users need to pray today, okay? You just need to pray. Ask God to help you. But with the iPhone came all the distractions, right? It was ping, ping, ping. It wanted our attention all the time, all the notifications and all the amazing things. It just sucked us right in. But here is the problem with the iPhone that I've experienced, maybe you've experienced it too, is that just when I get the upgrade, right, and I get the iPhone 12 and I'm like, man, I've arrived. Apple comes out with the 13. And suddenly I feel like I got to get the 13 because the 13 has a better camera. And my photos are really important. And so I need to get that next upgrade. And here at this point is where the phones and marriages come together, right? And I know some of you are saying, Ryan, when are you ever going to get to a point here? What is happening? This is where it all comes together. Because when you're dating, right, if you can think back that far, you were looking, right, for that new model, weren't you? It was explosive. It was exciting. It's got sizzle, right? When you're dating somebody, everything they did was amazing. Oh my goodness, just the way she walks is so cute. I just can't even, the sound of his voice is so sexy. I could listen to his voice all day long. And the days turn into weeks, turn into months, turn into years, turn into decades. And you're like, if I have to hear his voice one more second, I'm going to end his life, I think. And we get into these spots, right, in our marriage relationship because marriage is tough. None of it's easy. And the temptation can be, well, maybe I just need an upgrade. Maybe I need an upgrade in my relationship. I need a new husband. I need a new wife, right? I need the next best thing. But when this all started, this was the plan in Ephesians 5:31. When Paul wrote this, as scriptures say, a man leaves his father and his mother and is joined to his wife. And the two are united into one. And the problem that we face is there was so much excitement around the unifying to one. There was so much excitement around the two becoming one. And later on, we find ourselves tempted to split back into two. And I got to tell you, I've done a lot of weddings in my life. And every wedding I've done, every couple believes that they are going to make it all the way to the end, right? They want to be married forever. Nothing would ever come between them, right? I've never heard one couple say on their wedding day, I just really hope to be in this for a few years and get out of here with the dining room set, right? Nobody ever says that. Everybody wants to go the distance. Every one of us, if you're in a marriage relationship, all of us have an end goal, right, of being in the nursing home together, right? Trading oxygen hits, right? I mean, isn't that the goal? Feeding each other Jell-O, going to dinner at 3 p.m., right? That is what we are aiming for. We want to make it the long haul. But here's the problem. Your very first fill-in. That we go into marriage with the best intentions of being in love, yet we fail to do the hard work necessary to stay in love. We go into marriage, right? With the best intentions, we're going to be married forever, but we fail to do the hard work necessary to stay in love. And anybody who's been married for more than a minute can tell you that that is not easy to do. It is difficult to stay close to someone year over year, decade over decade. It's hard to do that. And the reason why it's hard to do that is maybe something that we've never ever thought before. And it comes down to the single greatest threat in our relationship. Except it may not be what you think. The single greatest threat to your relationship is not infidelity. It's not financial pressure. It's not bad behavior. It's not dishonesty. It's not even being married to a Packers fan. Although I just think there hasn't been enough research yet on that one. The single greatest, biggest threat to your relationship, your next fill-in, is drift. The biggest threat to any relationship is drift. Back just 2 years ago, there was a U.S. Navy small boat that was tied up at the shores in San Diego, California at the Army base. And amazingly enough, somehow this boat got loose and started to sail out into the ocean. It was not manned and nobody was on it. And it wasn't until that the huge USS Hung Chun vessel saw this boat just floating in the middle of nowhere, drifting into God knows where, that they radioed in. They realized the boat was missing, and they had to send somebody out to go and capture the boat and bring it back to the port. Right? Somebody's losing their job, aren't they? Somebody's losing their job. But the same kind of thing can happen in our relationship. Drift is what happens when the stresses of life and the busyness of life takes over, right? The daily routines begin to carry us in different directions. And drift happens when no one's paying attention. When we stop being intentional about our relationship. And the reason that drift is so dangerous is because most of us don't realize it until it's almost too late. You don't realize how far apart you've really gotten. Right? You're just going through life, and maybe you're raising kids, or you're doing the jobs, you're paying bills, and all of a sudden you realize that you've drifted and you are far apart. You feel like you've lost connection. Or to quote the great song, you feel like you've lost that love and feeling, right? It's nowhere to be found. And that's why the Apostle Paul actually tried to warn people a little bit. Like this verse in 1 Corinthians 7:28, when he said, however, those who get married at this time will have troubles. And I'm trying to spare you those problems. Right? Paul's trying to lead us into this. And I got to be honest, I've never heard that verse read at a wedding. Ever. In fact, I've never seen this on a Hallmark greeting card, right? Congrats on the wedding, but brace yourself, this is going to be really hard. Never seen that. But it's the truth. And over time, drift just begins to happen. In fact, your next fill-in, drift requires absolutely no effort. Drift requires no effort, and without effort, relationships deteriorate. When you haven't paid attention to it, it's going to deteriorate. Right? Maybe we think that relationships just stay stagnant if you don't do anything about it, but it's not true. Relationships don't stay in neutral. Relationships always go backwards if not tended to. Right? That's why you've heard your friends say, I don't know what happened. I think maybe we just fell out of love. Right? I mean, come on. Who falls out of love? I mean, are you talking about like falling out of a tree? I mean, how does that happen? Right? You didn't fall in love because to fall means, it was an accident. You didn't fall in love. You were intentional. In fact, really intentional about your relationship at first. And then the older you've gotten, you've become unintentional. And it's caused you to drift. And people say, oh, maybe we've just fallen out of love. Maybe we're just different people. We've just grown so far apart. But the truth is, come on, we know this. When you were falling in love, do you think back to how intentional you were? Right? It was when you bought the flowers and you made the phone calls and you couldn't wait to be on the phone for hours talking to one another. You loved to listen to one another's issues and you wanted to communicate. You did all the special things, and it was the intention that led to your connection. It was your intention that led to your connection. And when it comes to our relationships, it's really easy for the stress of life and the responsibilities we have and the daily routines to keep us so busy that we don't even realize that we are drifting far apart. And this is the thing, the greatest threat to our relationship is drift. So what can we do about it? Right? Because ultimately, we all want to be going the same direction with our spouse, don't we? Right? We want to make it to the end. We want to be close. We want to have somebody that knows us, that loves us fully and completely, that fully values us, to be on the same team with that person. And here's the good news, is that even if you've been here for the first 10 minutes of this and you go, yeah, I recognize there's some drift happening. The great news is that you're not far away from reconnecting. You can make your way back to the port, so to speak. But it is going to cause you, right? A need is going to arise. You're going to have to rev up those engines and pay attention to the intention of your connection. And so here's a great question to ask yourself. Am I putting the same effort into my relationship today as when I did when we were the closest? Right? That's a great question. And so here's your next fill-in. To avoid the drift, you must add intention to your connection. Right? So if you did it before, what would it take to do it again? And so I'd like us to illustrate real quick that this line is going to be our journey through life. Can we just pretend that, right? And here you are, and you got married, right? Here you are, right? And you got, that's not a very good wedding dress, but you know, sparks are flying. It's like fireworks. Everything was wonderful. You get married, and the goal is to end up, right, at the nursing home. And here's you, sitting in the wheelchair, and you're just hoping you guys make it together, right? That's the end goal. So think about your journey in life. For every single one of us, there are hurdles that pop up from time to time. And these hurdles could be any kind of loss, maybe. Could be any kind of difficult thing or a challenging thing that you go through, right? Maybe it's the loss of a job. Maybe it's a miscarriage. Maybe it's a health issue. Maybe it's a financial problem. Maybe it's a kid's illness. And here's my question. Why is it that some couples seem to be able to get through those things and keep going to the end while others don't? I mean, do they have some kind of secret sauce? Are they just built different and stronger and better than I am? Or is there something bigger at play? Why is it that some couples make it over these things and others don't? And the answer is this: because all throughout your life, through your marriage relationship, you are either adding to your relationship through intentional connection, or you are subtracting. You're subtracting through drift, through unintentionality. And when you make these choices of connection consistently, it acts as a ladder in your life. And when you face the hurdles of life and when you face the challenging things, it is much easier to get over those hurdles, right, isn't it? Because you're already starting from a place of connection. It's the people who have allowed their relationship to drift, and they hit a hurdle, and now this seems insurmountable. How do we get over this? How do we get through it? It's all about the intention of our connection. Right, here's your next fill-in. That what you pour into your relationship will be a direct result of what you get out of it. What you pour into your relationship will be the direct result of what you get out of it. So if you are building connections, right, this is what you're building in your life, little by little over time. For those that drift, right, it's like sowing and reaping. You get what you've sown. And that's why we said for a couple weeks, the temptation is to say, oh, the grass is going to be greener on the other side. And we said, no, the grass isn't greener on the other side. The grass is greenest where you water it. The grass is greenest where you add intention to your connection. Because your new relationship is going to still face hurdles. It's still going to face challenges. And if you approach it with the same attitude of saying, I'm just not going to pay any attention to it, you're going to find yourself in the same place of drift going, they must be the problem. Maybe I just need an upgrade if I want to be happy in life. But the truth is, thank you, the truth is, your next fill-in. To reboot your connection, you must have a deep friendship that gets cherished and nourished regularly. To reboot your connection, you must have a deep friendship that gets cherished and nourished regularly. Song of Song 5:16, I love this description of a wife describing her husband. She says this, his mouth is sweetness itself. Yes, it is. He is altogether lovely. Yes, he is. Interesting. This is my beloved. This is my, what's that word? Friend. This is my friend. Dr. John Gottman, who has devoted his life to studying marriage, said this, the determining factor in whether wives feel satisfied with sex, romance, and passion in their marriage is by 70% the quality of the couple's friendship. The percentage for men, 70%. We finally agree on something. We finally agree on something. And he says for 70% of us, we will have a quality marriage if we can get a quality friendship and keep that intention. And so, in the remaining time that we have together, I want to give you 6 things that will help you be super intentional to build connection. 6 things, and I know some of them you probably already heard, you already know, and that's okay if this is a good reminder, good. But this is what we're doing today. We're saying, how can we add to the ladder of connection so when we face difficult times, we have an easy hurdle over? Okay, you ready? We're going to go through these quick. Number 1. Express gratitude. Express gratitude. The truth is, we often thank strangers more than we thank our own spouse. Hope your husband's not here. Oh, you were talking about yourself. That's good. Okay, that's all right. Right? Say thank you. Criticism is the easiest way to close your spouse's heart off to you. Gratitude is the antidote to this. Express it, right? Look for the things they've done. Look for the things they've helped with. Look for the things they took time to do, even if it falls into their expectation zone. And that's their job, right? This is what happens in relationships. When we were dating and they did something nice, oh, we would thank them so much. But now that we've been married a few years and the dishes get done, we don't say thank you. We just expect it. Right? The power there is in gratitude. If I asked you how many of you love to be thanked and appreciated, every hand would go up. And when we're appreciated, we actually want to lean in and do more of that, and that's what will happen in your relationship as you express gratitude to one another. It actually builds the connection between you. Maybe these are words of gratitude left in a card that wasn't Valentine's Day or their birthday, but just a card to tell them that you love them, that you're thinking about them, that you're grateful. Right, to express your gratitude. Number 2, prepare your heart on the way home from work. Prepare your heart on the way home from work. This is so crucial. I know you want to get caught up on K-Fan and all the sports, and I know that you want to listen to your podcast, whatever it is, but here's what I'd ask you to do. Your 15 or 20 minutes on the way home might be crucial for how the rest of your night goes in relation to your spouse and your kids. And let me tell you what happens. all day long at work. You know what's been going on? People have brought their problems to you. They've been frustrating people, right? Your boss came in and things weren't done right, and so he kind of chewed you out a little bit. And you have the pressure because that job, that quarterly report is due and you're behind, and on, and pressure builds until we finally are at the brim. And you know what we do? We bring ourselves home like this. And we say, as long as nobody bumps me, I'll be fine. As long as nobody yells and screams and the kids are quiet, as long as no one irritates me, as long as there's nothing. But as soon as somebody does bump you, guess what happens? All of it starts coming out. Everything that was happening all day long, you bring home with you, and the people that mean the most to you get the worst of you. And so the prayer becomes on the way home, God, help me to leave what I need to leave at work. God, help me to leave what I need to leave at work and the stresses and the pressure. And God, help me to walk in and help me to be the best dad that I can be tonight. Help me to be the best spouse that I can be tonight. Right? To give the very best of me to them. So, and as we prepare our heart, God wants to help us, right? He wants to help us to be prepared to give our best to our family. All right, number 3, we're going quick. Put away the technology. I know this is going to be hard. I'm sorry. I'm just going to apologize all day today. I'm sorry. Put away the technology. Shut off the phones. Put away the TV. Put away the iPad and have a good conversation. Take a long walk. Sit on the porch. Ask good questions. Do something together to be involved in each other's lives. I can remember when I was dating, I couldn't wait to spend hours on the phone with my girlfriend. We would talk till 2 a.m. I just couldn't, and then you get married for a little while and you barely talk. It was just so interesting. Just a couple Saturdays ago, I took my daughter to breakfast, and there was 2 high tops kind of in the back of the restaurant, and so we sat at one and the other table was empty. And about 10 minutes after we were sitting there, a mom and dad and about a 10-year-old son come walking in, and they sit down, and all 3 of them pull out their phones. And this is what they did for an hour. Didn't say a word to each other. And technology is so great in so many ways, but it's also contributing to drift in our relationships. It's causing us to be disconnected from one another. Have you ever found out something about your spouse when they said it out loud to other people? And you thought to yourself, I didn't even know that. That's not a great feeling. That's happened to me before. That's not a great feeling. But again, it comes back to this intentional connection, right? Being together, talking, working on this. We are building a bridge to get over the hump. So put away technology. Number 4, provide affection. Provide affection. And I know that men, when you hear affection, you think sex, and that is not what I'm talking about, right? Provide affection. Do this when you don't even feel like it, right? I read recently that we need 11 positive touches a day, right? Hold their hand. Give them a kiss before you leave for work. Maybe it's a long hug at night when you get home. Provide that affection for one another that will continue to build the blocks that you need in your life. Number 5, have fun and laugh together. Have fun and laugh together. When was the last time you had a good laugh, a good belly laugh? When was the last time you did something so fun together? Maybe it's spontaneous, right? Play practical jokes, create surprises for each other, flirt. It's okay to flirt, even if you've been married a long time. Think of something creative to do together. Pick a sport or an activity, something that you can do together, because remember, it is not the activity that matters. You could clean up poop together, right? Your dog's pooping, that you could do it together. Now, that probably won't be the most exciting thing, but again, it isn't the activity, it's the connection that you have doing it together. That's what matters. Because as we get older, we get boring, don't we? And we get in routines, and is it time for the nightly news and Wheel of Fortune? We just get so boring. What can we do to have fun together? That means you might have to leave your house from time to time. Go do something together, because this is what Solomon encourages us to do. In Ecclesiastes 9:9, he says, relish life with the spouse you love each and every day of your precarious life. Each day is God's gift. And I love that he used this word precarious, right? We don't never know what's going to happen. We don't know what a day holds. He says, as long as God's given you breath, I want you to relish this time with the spouse that God has given you. Enjoy the journey. Build the connection with your spouse. And then lastly, number 6, plan date nights. Plan date nights. I don't care how long you've been married. Plan them, plan them, plan them. I remember it was probably 8 or 9 years ago. Tara came to me and she was frustrated and she said, Ryan, I feel like you're a good planner. You plan things at church really well. You plan things for the kids really well. I don't think that you plan things for you and I very well. That is not great to hear. So you know what I did? I enlisted the help of Siri. I said, Siri, remind me every month to plan a date night. And guess what Siri does? Siri's faithful. Siri's good. Siri reminds me every month I'm planning a date night because we need that connection together, right? You can't ever stop investing in one another if you want to make it to the end. You can't ever stop investing. The moment you stop investing, this is what happens, drift, and it happens so easily. You've got to keep investing. And here's the thing, if you go out on a date night, no sensitive topics, right? You're being together, you're having fun. This is not the time to work out every issue in your marriage. You're going out to invest in each other. I talked to a friend recently who said, my wife and I, we actually have a stack of gift cards that we've gotten over the years, and we never use them because we just don't ever have time to go out. And it's not that they don't have time to go out. It's that they haven't been intentional about their connection. I mean, especially if you have kids, come on, you have to get away from your kids. You've got to keep investing in each other, prioritize time together, get your calendars out, right? Go through your calendar, plan out your date nights. If you need to reoccur it in your calendar, reoccur it. You've got to do it. And I want to encourage all the men in this room to take the lead on this. Just like I had to do 9 years ago, I had to make an intentional decision. I want to encourage the men, take the lead on date nights, plan them, and let's do it. Shanti Fieldhands surveyed 1,000 couples and discovered this, that 90% of the happiest couples say that spending time together is the biggest reason for their happiness. Doing home projects, taking evening walks, going to kids' sports, watching TV, even going to grocery shopping together. And so we've got a plan for it, right? This is your next fill-in. In order to build on this friendship and grow in your relationship, you must plan for it. If you want what you once had, you must do what you once did. And when you guys were first dating, or you were newlyweds, you planned on it. You added so much intention to your connection. And over time, the busiest of life, we can just forget about that. Here's Paul's encouragement to us in Ephesians 5:1. Follow God's example, therefore, as dearly loved children, and walk in the way of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. Walk, I love that, walk in the way of love. With your spouse, that's your attitude, that's your heart. I'm going to walk in their direction. It's a powerful picture of a marriage relationship. And then your last fill-in, and we're done. Being in love is not a feeling, but the result of making choices to pursue one another continually. Being in love is not a feeling. You can't fall in love. You can't fall out of love. It all comes back to your intentional connection. That will determine whether or not you stay in love, to do the hard work necessary to pursue one another all the way to the nursing home. So let me ask you this question as we close. Is there any other part of your life that you can neglect and see improvement in? If you neglect your finances, can you see improvement? No. Right? If you neglect your relationship with your kids, will that get better? No, it won't get better. Right? What about your body? If you just neglect your body, will it get better on its own? No. Your yard, right? You can't neglect your yard. It doesn't get better on its own. I wish it would. It doesn't. The truth is, there's no area of our life that we can neglect and see improvement on. And the same is true of our relationships. It takes intentional connection to stay in love. And lastly, this quote that I found this week that I just loved. It said, marriage often starts out as a journey between friends. It gets off course as friends become business partners trying to pay the bills, parents trying to raise the kids, caregivers trying to tend to aging parents, cab drivers trying to shuttle family members to various events, event planners trying to pull off everything from holidays to birthday parties, and lovers trying to keep the flames of passion hot. Perhaps the key is to always be working on the friendship, because in the end, the rest of marriage seems to come together more easily and happily when you're working on it with your friend. So this week, what can we do to add intention to our connection, to make sure that we stay in love even when we feel the challenges of life hitting us hard? So can we pray together? Would you mind closing your eyes? Heavenly Father, we admit that we need your help. And I pray today that something would shift in our heart, that our eyes would be open, that we'd become aware of how easy it is to drift in the relationships that mean the most to us. And I pray, God, that today that you would speak to us about the areas that we need to focus on to better our connection. That it might take some time, and it may not always be easy, but God, there's something beautiful on the other side if we'll choose to pursue one another. So I ask today, God, tomorrow morning as we get up, remind us to pursue our spouse, to add intention to our connection, God. Give us wisdom to know what to do with what we've heard. Give us the courage to do it. In Jesus' name, amen.